What's going on, Colts Nation? Appreciate you joining me for another video. And before we get into the video, just know that in the description there is a link for Green Gridiron where you can get mini helmets or authentic NFL helmets. Okay, and make sure to use the discount code INDSYN at checkout and use that referral code down in the description so that they know I sent you. Okay, so again, go to the description. Holiday season coming up. Mini helmets, mini helmet accessories, helmet accessories, whatever the case may be. You want it for you, your man cave, a loved one, whatever the case is. Mini helmets and authentic NFL helmets can be found on Green Gridiron. The link in the description. Again, that is code INDSYN for the discount code. I appreciate you stopping by. And now let's get into the video. What's going on, Colts Nation? I appreciate you joining me for another video where today we're going to talk a little bit about our defensive coordinator, Gus Bradley. Now, I know where a lot of people are going to go with this conversation, and I just think that there's some conversation to be had. You see how the defense performs sometimes, and it's like there are different times where we just dominate games, and usually it is against bad football teams, but this last game against Denver, and there are different examples to be had, but I think with it being fresh, like the defense dominated so much of that game. And then it just blew, and it wasn't really their fault, right? The offense was on the field for 7 of those points in the fourth quarter. The punt team did a terrible job, gave up a big return. Rigo continuously out kicking his coverage, and because the guys can't get down there. They find a seam, able to get returns, and they get one inside the 5-yard line, right? Defense put in terrible positions through that game. Not entirely their fault of what happened last game. Even putting up the points that were put up, not their fault. And there is some of that, right? When I go through all the numbers, right, and I have all the different numbers that I think matter when we go and look at, Gus Bradley, his defense, what happens, all the numbers I thought matter I have. Points are included in that, and it's not all his fault. They all, like, pick sixes, right, fumbles, return for a touchdown, special teams giving up huge returns, and have defense having short fields, like the defense having short fields because of turnover, like those things factor into the defensive stats that are but it is a team game, and I do realize that. So it's not all on the defense. I think other people need to realize that, because there is some things that definitely not the defense's fault. But as Colts fans that watch every single game, we watch every game and we come away with the same things every game. As long as Gus Bradley's been here, it's always been the same exact thing, right? And this bend don't break defense sounds great, right? But we are very inconsistent with getting turnover. If we have a game where we very rarely have one turnover in a game. We either have 0 or we have multiple. Right? We get them in bunches or we don't get them at all. We'll go weeks without turnovers. So this defense is just wildly inconsistent. We know at the worst times we're playing off coverage and playing this soft coverage, and because it's built to be a bend don't break defense, right? Built to not give up the explosive plays, which again goes to one of the stats. Because it's supposed to be bend don't break, I went to look at stats, and hey, you know what? What about explosive plays? What stats can I find about explosive plays? So let's start going through the numbers about Gus Bradley's defense this year, the defense from this season that has at different times dominated football games. But this defense that will dominate 3/4 of a football game, there's just different times, and it's almost every game, where for a quarter they disappear and teams run through them like Swiss cheese. It's cliche, but that's what the defense is for 1/4 a game. It's just what it is. And it's not I think I've said it a million times. I'll continue to say we have dogs on defense. That's one thing. Like, give credit to Ballard for putting talent on the team. Right? Has he put all the right guys on the team? Obviously not. We continue to not win with all the same guys. Obviously not the right collection of talent, but it definitely a collection of talent. There's a lot of talent on that defense, which is why at different times they will dominate. But because Gus Bradley's scheme, the things that they do, how predictable it is, at different times offenses will just run through it. and it's not the player's fault. So when you look at the numbers, 23rd in pass yards per attempt allowed at 7.4. We're 12th in interceptions, okay? Again, on and off. And when we get a lot, or when we get one, we get a few, right? Just this last game. We got one, we ended up with 3, right? When we get interceptions, we get them in bunches. We have 12 this year, which is 12th in the NFL, which is the best of all these stats. The highest rank we have of all the stats that I picked out, 12th in interceptions, okay? It's not like you can go through any other stat that I looked at or that I don't have here and say, oh, well, we're 5th in this or 8th in that. We're just not. We're not. So going forward, 19th in rush yards per carry. So actually better in rush yards per carry than pass yards per attempt, which wasn't true at the beginning of the season. So it's kind of flip-flopped. And at times we've still not been able to stop the run, but we've definitely, in my opinion, as we've watched the games, we've gotten better, especially out on the edges against the run. We've gotten better, but the pass game seems to have suffered because of it. 7.4 yards per attempt is crazy. I forgot to get the rush yards per carry for you guys, but again, we're 19th in the league right there. And this is the big plays. We are 23rd in the NFL in big plays allowed, right? So first being the least, 32nd being the most big plays allowed. We are 23rd. 8 40-plus yard plays allowed. 80. Now, there was one team, I can't remember what team it was. There was one team that had like, I think it's the Packers who lead the league. They have 140-plus yard play allowed, but 20-plus, they have like 58 or something crazy number. But we're giving it well. I don't have the 20-plus number for us, but one of the worst in the league at that as well. But 23rd with 8 40-plus yard plays this season against this defense, and a defense that's literally like it's built to not give up the big play. It's what it's supposed to do, is not give up the big play. And you've given up 8 40-plus yard plays this year. 24th in total pass yards, 30th in total rush yards. So when you think about, that's why you got to take different things into account. Those, when you think about 24th and 30th in pass and rush, it looks a lot worse, right? Then you have yards per carry, yards per attempt. That breaks things down to a more reasonable aspect, but nonetheless, your defense has been on the field and given up that many yards. 30th in rush yards, 24th in total pass yards. The reason that the numbers are, there's such a discrepancy in the way those numbers are, our defense has been on the field with 3 games left. Our defense has been on the field 934 plays. Our offense has been on the field for 829. The opposing teams have been on the field through 14 games. They've been on the field for 105 more plays than us. So essentially, if you break that down, right, and most teams, you're probably getting 6 plays a drive on average, 5.5 plays on average. That's almost 2 extra drives teams are getting on us on average, right? Because again, this is a team game. It's not all on the defense, but because the defense can't get off the field. So at the end of the day, that's what a lot of it is. Defense just continuously not being able to get off the field, giving up a lot of third downs, and again, the numbers equal themselves out. Some games were really good, some games were really bad. They equal themselves out. But again, this defense, very inconsistent. And in the NFL, it's tough to play defense. That's the leeway I try to give defenses. Like, it's just tough. A lot of the rules play against you, but then you see some defenses that just come out and dominate all the time, right? Might have 1 or 2 tough games in a year. And going against some of these tough offenses, right? The Bills, when you have Josh Allen on a generational run, sometimes your defense is just going to suffer because sometimes people like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes just can't be stopped, and Lamar Jackson, right? Like sometimes you're going to run into those buzzsaws, but that's what I'm saying. Those numbers will equal out, and the numbers every year, we're almost at the end of the season, the numbers every year equal out to one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Okay, the one takeaway from this Colts team that the coaches have tried to harper on is, hey, we're good at keeping the points low. We do give up a lot of yards, but when you look at it, we give up, this amount of points. Well, hey, guess what? Once all the teams in the NFL had their bye week and we finally had our bye week, guess what? When you look at it, we are now 21st in the NFL in points allowed per game, 23.5. And again, that's not all on the defense, completely understand, but nonetheless, 23.5 per game is what our opponents get. That is 21st in the NFL. All the numbers at the end of the year, year after year after year after year with Gus Bradley has all amounted to the same result. We continue to let people walk all over us, and we're always going to lose because we can't stop anybody. Momentum, right? And one thing I've noticed with Gus Bradley, is that every time we go up 2 scores, the opposing offense, they're going to walk right down the field. Right down the field. We're going to start playing it safe because we're up 2 scores. Right down the field, touchdown. Boom. All of a sudden, it's not a 2-score game anymore. The other team getting the momentum back because they had a sustained drive, converted a couple third. It's every time with Gus Bradley. So there's an argument. I know. There's an argument to be had where Gus Bradley isn't the problem. You also have to think about the players. And you have to think about, when they're on the field, they just have to be able to execute. And they have to be able to do what they're supposed to do. But at the end of the day, the coaches are supposed to put their players in positions to win. And we've drafted so many good players, and Gus Bradley doesn't change. And that's the problem. We have all these players, and we're drafting these different guys, and he wants to play the way he wants to play. And he makes players mold the way his defense is instead of saying, you know what, maybe I should do more of what everybody else is doing. And maybe all the greatest defensive coaches of all time say we need to be multiple. Maybe I should try to evolve my defense to be more multiple. Maybe we should try to fill some things here and fill some things here. And then in the off season, hey, what worked, what didn't, boom. Hey, let's fill some things here and fill some things here in the off season and see what we think might work and then do it. And he just doesn't do it. He just runs the same things. There are charts out there on Twitter about how predictable this Colts defense is. Right? The EPA. People like to talk about the EPA. The EPA per play for this defense, offense is going against our defense is far too high. Right? The bend don't break mentality is great, but at the end of the day, man, we're past it and we can't do it anymore. So for me, I'm out. I'm out on Gus Bradley. I know most of the people watching this are going to be out on Gus Bradley, but again, there's some times where this defense dominates. So it's like I can understand somebody that's like, well, I don't know if Gus Bradley needs to leave. So you let me know your thoughts. Do you think Gus Bradley needs to be fired? Do you think we need to go get a new DC this offseason? Or do you think Gus Bradley's not the problem on defense and that we just need to get different types of players and that we need to upgrade the defense? What do you think needs to happen for us to be a dominant defense again? You let me know down in the comment section. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this. Going to use a lot of what you guys are talking about in the comments of these videos. All these different, right? We've talked about AR, Coach Steichen, and now Coach Bradley, and we're going to continue these conversations. What you guys say is going to be massive for what we start talking about in the off season, right? I'm going to see where you guys are at, where I'm at, going to compare everything, and we're going to talk a lot about this stuff and really get into it in the off season. But just want to know what you guys are thinking. These are the numbers I'm looking at. This is what I think about it, and I think Gus has to go. This is where I'm at with that whole situation. So love to know what you guys think. And of course, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you continue to get notified anytime any of these kinds of videos come out, anytime we go live for the games on Sunday, news, updates, whatever it may be. Make sure you're getting notifications for it. And of course, I appreciate you stopping by for another video. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.